And welcome to day 2 of Techapalooza. I am honored beyond belief to be able to kick off the second day for you. Hopefully you enjoyed the sessions that we had yesterday. Sam Glenn and Lindsay Picardo and Clinton Apple. A lot of what they talked about yesterday, especially Sam and Lindsay, will bleed over into my presentation today. So I'm hoping that you are able to take some tips away from this presentation. I know the last thing I'm going to give you is the 10 principles of positivity, but I want to build up to that. So it's interesting because Sam has been doing professional speaking for 25 years. Lindsay has also been doing speaking for many, many years. In all honesty, this is my first time doing this, so I hope you'll afford me a little bit of grace. I like to start by talking about the word positivity. I fancy myself to be somewhat of a linguist, so I like to understand the definition of words and what they mean. So I looked through various dictionaries, and my favorite definitions come from the Oxford Dictionary. The first definition for positivity in the Oxford Dictionary is the practice of being or tendency to be positive or optimistic in attitude. I think the most important word in that sentence, and you'll think I'm going to say positive or optimistic, but I'm not. I think the most important word in that sentence is practice. It is not something that is going to happen overnight. It's not something that you do it once and you're good. It's something that you have to work at each and every day. The second definition from the Oxford Dictionary for positivity says the presence rather than the absence of a certain substance, condition, or feature. Does that remind you of anything? It reminds me of the old analogy of the glass. Is it half full or is it half empty? And over the years, I've tried to come up with a way to present it to where it's realism and not optimistic or pessimistic. It just is. But for being just is, it also just isn't. So it's kind of impossible there. So in addition to understanding what words mean, I also like to be somewhat of an etymologist, not to be confused with entomologists. Those are the people that study bugs. My wife would love to be an entomologist, but not me, thank you. So positivity really has no direct translation. The closest translation comes from the Latin word verus, which means true. And I love that positivity, the closest translation is true because it is truth. So I'd like to kind of get some interaction and get you guys involved a little bit right off the bat. So if you would, in the chat window, I'd like you to put a date of when you think the word positivity started being used. So if you want to take a minute, just go to chat and put in the year that you think positivity was first used. Okay, 1640, 1776, 1900, 1975, 1542. Yeah, that's actually, I'm surprised. Most people that I've talked to think positivity is a relatively recent term, something that the millennial generation or somebody new age came up with. It feels recent, doesn't it? But in actuality, it comes from the mid 17th century. 1659 is the actual year. So Austin, you're really close there with about 1650s. You're right on. And interestingly enough, it wasn't used prior to that. And then that year, all of a sudden, three authors in that very same year decided to start using the word positivity. Now, initially, positivity was not a good thing. The authors actually used it to refer to sin. So you committed a crime, you did something wrong, and it's positivity that you did it. So obviously the meaning has evolved, thankfully, over the years. Positivity is an interesting word because there are, okay, let's do another interaction real quick. How many words, and no using Google, no cheating, how many words in the English language do you think that end with ITY? Go ahead and type into the chat. Okay, we've got 100, we've got 1,000, 42, 1,700. Okay, some very good answers. The actual number is there are currently, and this was as of about a week ago, so it could have changed since then. There could be more. But when I checked, there were 1,533 words in the English language that end in ITY. Of those 1,533 words, there are very few of them that have attracted the skepticism that the word positivity has. A lot of people do not accept the word positivity. I don't really understand why that is. There are other words that end in ITY that are questionable. One of my favorites is dorsiventrality. I mean, seriously, we can accept that, but we can't accept the word positivity. Polarizability. There are just all kinds of strange ITY words out there, but few of them have the skepticism that the word positivity does. Now, let's talk for a second about the opposite of positivity, which is negativity. What year do you think the word negativity started being used? Go ahead and type your answers into the chat there. Okay, we've got 1653, 1980, 1658, 1660. Okay, so again, a wide range. And interestingly enough, negativity has only been around since the 19th century. So it started being used in the 1800s. So positivity was around about 160, 170 years before negativity. But the difference is negativity is widely accepted as a word. Why do you think that is? I think it's because we as human beings are programmed and conditioned really from the time we were born to see things from a negative perspective. I mean, think about it for a second. When a baby's born, what do? They cry to get attention. A toddler, what do we do when we want to correct them? No, don't do that. Hey, stay out of that. It's all negative. Teenagers, adolescents, all the way up to early 20s, what do we tell them? Don't drink and drive. Don't do drugs. Everything is a negative perspective. And certainly, if you turn on the news, the vast majority of it is negative and not positive. So positivity and living a positive life requires a change in mindset. Positive thinking goes against the grain. There's no getting around it. It's not our natural human tendencies. It is not an easy transition. It's not something that is going to happen overnight, as I said earlier. It's something that, if you remember from the definition, it requires practice. Okay. So if you want to change from a negative mindset, you have to learn to recognize negative thinking. So when you have negative thoughts, you need to do 3 things. Okay. Number 1, you need to pause. As soon as you think something negative, I want you to take a moment and just stop. I want you to reflect on that negative thought. Why are you thinking that thought? Why is that negativity in your mind? And then once you get a good understanding of why that negativity is in your mind, then I want you to redirect that thought and come up with something positive about the situation. So I've got a list here of 5 things that positivity is and things that positivity is not. So we'll start with what positivity is. First and foremost, positivity is a choice. You know, Sam said this yesterday, Lindsay alluded to it as well. We decide from the moment we wake up in the morning whether we're going to have a good day, whether it's going to be positive. So, you know, in my case, before my feet hit the floor and I get up in the morning, you know, I reflect on the good things in my life. I reflect on my blessings and I'm thankful. And you may say, well, I don't have anything to be thankful for. This is a really difficult time. And I'm not going to dispute that. These are unprecedented times. However, there is always something to be thankful for, even if it is just, thank goodness I woke up today. I can breathe. I have a healthy family. I have a roof over my head. I have a pillow to lay my head down on when I sleep at night. There is always something to be thankful for. Now, some of you may be saying, well, I can't do it before my feet hit the floor in the morning. I can't do anything before I've had my morning coffee. So I will concede that, all right, perhaps it's you do this after you've had your morning coffee. I think that's fine too. But I think the point is that you have to consciously make the choice. And it's not a one-time deal for the day. Because I'll tell you, the world is going to get in your way. Your job, your personal life, things in your personal life, there are tons of things that are going to come at you and try to undermine your joy and your positivity. So you're going to have to make that choice sometimes, several times a day. But again, pause, reflect, redirect when you start having a negative thought. If you have a negative situation, take a breath, walk away, and do those 3 steps for me. So positivity is a choice. Positivity is also a belief. And it's not a belief that things are going to be good every day, that you are going to be happy no matter what. No, that's not it. I think positivity, especially for me, is that it's a belief that in the end, everything will be okay, that eventually everything will work itself out. We all have storms in life. I mean, Lord knows we all have storms in life. But eventually things will get better. And I believe that in my heart of hearts. So positivity is a choice, it's a belief. When you start with this positive way of thinking, with this lifestyle, because it really is a lifestyle, it is also a transformation. And I'll tell you my story here in just a bit. Um, it can be a life-changing transformation. It really can, and it's a transformation for the better. It really is. That being said, positivity is also a way of life. It's a different way of seeing things. It's a way of seeing things from a positive perspective. And the last thing on the list of what positivity is positivity is contagious. I'll tell you what. And I put an asterisk after contagious, and kind of do what Lindsay did yesterday with having that little caveat on the slide. Um, Positivity is contagious when it's not overdone. Don't be that annoying positive person that's positive in every situation. Oh, my foot just got ran over by a semi. This is great. Best feeling in the world. No, there are certain situations when positivity is maybe not even appropriate. You know, if someone has lost a loved one, don't go and tell them it's okay, they're in a better place. That's not what they need to hear at the time. So don't be that annoying positive person. So let's switch over to what positivity is not. And I decided to drink water today instead of a cup that has who knows what on that, crunchy coffee. So, okay, positivity is not being happy every day. There are going to be days when you can't be positive, and that's okay. Okay, it's not that every day is going to go your way, because it just won't. Positivity is not the easiest path. It is so much easier to go with the flow, to ride that vortex of negativity, as I call it, and just see things in a bad light. I mean, to complain is much easier than to take a moment and say, okay, well, what's good in my life? Positivity is not ignoring the truth. Okay. It's also not a guarantee that you'll never have a bad day. It's just a way to help you endure that bad day and believe and know that you can get past that bad day and that things can and will get better. And probably the most difficult is not for me. Positivity is not an excuse to circumvent challenges because they are difficult. You can't avoid things. So if you have, for instance, someone at work that is on your case, someone that's yelling at you or something like that, you know, you can't always avoid the situation. But what you can do is pause, reflect, and redirect the conversation and make that better. Okay, so I want to get into my story now. And I'll be honest, this has been a lifetime in preparing me to share my story. It's not an easy thing for me to do. So many of you who know me, and I'll use Lindsay's words from a conversation I had with her yesterday. Many of you may look at me and think that I've had a charmed life. And if you look at especially the last 12 years of my life, I mean, I've been an IT manager. I've been an IT director. At one point, I even had a six-figure salary, believe it or not. So you might say, well, how can you, it's easy for you to be positive because you've never had adversity or a negative situation to have to overcome. But you don't know my whole story. So that being said, let me share my story with you. So I grew up in the thriving metropolis that is Yoder, Indiana. I have an older sister. She's 8 years older than me. I have an older brother who is 6 years older than me. And I'm the next in line. And you may notice something there, and that is there's 2 years difference between my sister and brother, and then there's a huge 6 year gap with me. The reason that is because my mom, after my brother was born, my parents decided, you know what? We have 2 kids. We have a boy and a girl. We're good. Let's take steps to ensure we don't have any more kids. So after my brother was born, my mom actually had a tubal ligation. So she had, in effect, her tubes tied. So it is not impossible for conception after this happens, but it is very unlikely. It's about a 5 in 1,000 chance after 5 years. And in this case, we're talking just about 5 years. So really, I was kind of the unwanted one. My parents didn't expect me. Initially, I don't think they wanted me. It did get better, I think, later in life, but I had it difficult. Even before I was born, I had to fight against the odds. And I'll tell you, I'm sure, the doctors told them, oh, you won't conceive. And so I've had that negativity that I overcome even before I was born. But after I was born, it was very difficult being the youngest child and being the one that wasn't wanted. Now, my dad was a mechanic. He passed away in 2008. He worked very hard for his family, but we were poor. We were dirt poor. I grew up. I'm the kid that had the hand-me-downs. It's like, oh please, God, don't make me wear my sister's clothes. Fortunately, I never had to do that. But being barely scraping by and being dirt poor can take a toll on a person. And often when we're in those situations, Clinton talked about this yesterday in his session, we turn to things to help us relieve that stress. And for my father, what that was alcohol. So he was an alcoholic. And really there are 4 types of alcoholics, right? You've got your happy drunks. Those are the people that the more they drink, the happier and happier they get, the lower their inhibitions get. They're the people, it's like, Martha, get off that table. Stop dancing on the table. Those are your happy drunks. You've got your sad drunks. Those are the ones that, every little thing that happens to them is the end of the world. And they just are very mopey and very down and depressed, which makes sense because alcohol is a depressant. Then you have your goofy drunks. Those are the ones that like to do practical jokes, like to tell you stupid jokes, thinking that they're really funny. And the more they drink, the worse they get. The last kind, though, are the angry drunks. And these are the ones that the more they drink, the meaner they get. Everything sets them off. They like to fight. They like to assert themselves over other people. So my father was the last kind. He was one of the angry drunks. The slightest little thing would set him off. So we used to play this game, and not a game of the fun variety. We had this weeping willow tree in the back of our yard in Yoder. And the game was he'd come home, and if a chore wasn't done or something wasn't done to his liking, one of us would have to go out to the weeping willow tree, and we'd have to break a branch off and bring it back in. And the game of it is you wanted to get a branch that's small enough to where it just stings a little bit, but you don't want to get one that's big enough where it's going to cripple you for life, basically. And if you came in with one that was smaller than what he wanted, he would go out and get one himself, which was more closer to the one that you definitely don't want to get hit with. So he would come home, be set off. We'd play that game. It was either the weeping willow tree or sometimes it was the belt coming out of the loops and striking us in the back. So that game was about enough. And it makes me think of a story. There was one day, we had this cookie jar in the kitchen. And my father was the type of person that knew exactly how many cookies were in that cookie jar. So there was one day I was really hungry. Growing boy, you know. And so I ate a cookie out of the cookie jar. He came home, and even when he was stone cold drunk, he would go count the cookies in the cookie jar. And he would know when one is missing. And so he came home and he was really upset that there were cookies missing from the cookie jar. And normally the game with me and my siblings was none of us would own up to it, which inevitably led to all of us getting spanked. But for some reason, this particular day, my brother decided to say that he'd eaten a cookie. God, I love my brother. I love my brother. I love my sister. They have always stuck up for me. And I just don't know to this day why I let my brother take the rap for eating the cookie when I actually did it. So he took it that day for me. But that's the kind of man my father was at the time. There was one time I was about 8 years old, and my father had come home from work, and I don't know where my brother and sister was. I think they might have been out in the backyard playing. I don't know where my mother was. So it was just me. I was on the living room floor, and we had this god-awful rug, this woven rug that had these kind of rings on it. And I was playing with my Matchbox cars. I like to run them around these rings and race them. But something about the situation just set him off the minute he walked through the door. I don't know if he saw the cars as being a mess or what the deal was, but I could tell he was really angry. But the difference was that day, he wasn't yelling. And I could have almost handled it if he were yelling. It was much scarier. He was just so quiet. And he came in, he kind of glanced at me, but then he stormed past me. And I thought for a second, I'm sure it was relief that, oh, thank goodness I dodged whatever bullet that was. But I didn't. He proceeded to go in the closet and take a wooden baseball bat out of the closet. And he came back in the room, and still, without saying a word, he just started hitting me in the head with it. I remember getting hit once, and after that, thank God, I blacked out. And I don't really remember when I woke up, but I woke up sometime later, and he was sober at that point, and I think he obviously really regretted what he did. He was out of control, you know. Alcoholism is a demon that gets inside of you and takes control of you. And I'm guessing, although I don't remember, that they didn't take me to the hospital because I'm sure there would have been many questions asked at the time. but I still bear the scar. People don't ask about scars. And I think we're conditioned as a society. If someone has a scar or a disability, we don't talk about it. There's a stigma around it. Now, there are those people that have a filter, or rather have no filter. Kids are really good at this because kids are just honest and they'll say whatever's on their mind without even thinking about it. There's some adults like that too. So I've had a few people ask me over the years, Pete, what's the deal with your forehead? Now you know what the deal is with my forehead. So after that, that was undoubtedly the darkest moment in my life. But after that, I had one of the best moments in my life. And that is my grandparents actually came to the house, took me out of the house, and took me to live with them for several years until my father could get sober and kick this demon called alcohol. I'm here to tell you that was the best time of my life. My grandfather, my grandmother were Christians, so they started taking me to church. My grandfather introduced me to Christ, and I don't want this to be a religious message at all, mainly because I don't want to turn anyone away or offend anyone. But for me, faith became an integral part of my life. My grandfather was a rock in my life. And he's the one that he taught me to believe in myself. He really started me down this road of positivity way back then, even though at the time I didn't see it. There were other things that happened during my life, but I had people that helped me along the way. And I think that's a key too, is you need to have people in your life that are positive, that are uplifting, that believe in you. We're surrounded by such negativity right now. This world, our country is hurting right now. And we need more positive people. So what that means, I'll go back to what Sam said yesterday. We need to be there for each other. We need to take care of each other. It is so much easier to endure the hardships of life when you have someone that's there to endure it with you. And a lot of times it doesn't even take saying anything. It's just being there and having that presence to know that I'm here with you. I've got your back. I don't have to even say anything, and I have your back. Those are the kind of people that you need in your life. So that's my story. Let me get to the 10 principles of positivity. And these are tips that I think you can use both at home and at work. They're fully transferable. So the first one is to use positive words. If you remember from earlier, I said you have to pause, reflect, and redirect. So sometimes you need to do that, but you need to start taking the negative words out of your vocabulary. Remove can't, remove won't. Get those away and start replacing them with positive words, encouraging words. So that's point one, use positive words. Principle 2 is be thankful and express gratitude. I said earlier, when I get up in the morning before my feet hit the floor, I consciously decide that I am thankful. And if I have nothing else for the day, I am thankful I'm alive. I'm thankful that I'm upright and breathing the air. I am thankful that I have a loving wife of 15 years. I have 3 beautiful daughters, 2 at home, 1 out of home, and just find that thing to be thankful for. And I think the other piece of that is don't withhold your gratitude. Don't think that someone else knows how much that you appreciate them. If someone has done anything that you're thankful for and you're appreciative of, tell them. If someone inspires you, tell them. It is so important that we hear that from people, that we're making a difference in other people's lives. So, principle 1, use positive words. Principle 2, be thankful and express gratitude. Principle 3, change your focus. This is a really hard one to do right now because there is such a focus on negativity between the pandemic and all the rioting and looting and everything that's going on, all the protests. There's a lot of negativity out there right now. So this one takes a lot of extra effort. But find the good in your situation and in the world. Chances are you may have to turn off the news from time to time. I'm not telling you to ignore the news, but if you're watching the news and you start having negative thoughts, turn it off, walk away, go find something motivational, find a good piece of news. There are some still out there, even if you have to hunt for them sometimes. And I think the other piece of that is don't sweat the small stuff. There are some things in life that you can't change, no matter how much you try. If you can't change something, let it go. Worry about the things that you can change, okay? And I guarantee you, if you can change nothing else, you can change you. You can change yourself. You can change your way of thinking. It takes effort, but you can do it. And you know what? If I can do it, you can do it too. I believe in you. Okay, so use positive words, be thankful, express gratitude, change your focus. Number 4 is control your thoughts. Stop negative thinking in its tracks. Do that 3-step that I told you about. Pause, reflect, and redirect. Okay, and realizing that you're thinking negatively and speaking negatively, sometimes we don't even know that we're complaining. It's easier sometimes for other people to see that in us. So you might want to have a negativity buddy. I know that sounds strange, but have someone that you trust that isn't going to cut you down just to cut you down. But they'll be honest with you and tell you, hey, you know what? You're complaining a lot. You're seeing things in a negative light. Stop that. So you might want to find your negativity buddy. Okay, so that's number 4. Number 5, I think, is probably one of the most important principles of positivity. And that is give yourself permission to make mistakes. I had a wonderful leader at one point in my career, still work with them. I teach college classes on the side in the evenings. He's my boss at University of St. Francis, but he was once my boss at another job. And something that he taught me was it's okay to fail. But when you fail, learn from your mistakes, and more importantly, learn to fail forward and don't give up. Dust yourself off, get back up, and try again. So I wanted to find some examples of this, of people that didn't give up. So I'll start with Harry Potter, one of the most, without doubt, one of the most successful book series of all times. So you'd think that it was published right from the get-go. People saw the worth right away and they published it right away. No. J.K. Rowling and this manuscript were rejected 12 times before it was actually published. And I pick literature because I also write as well, and I know full well about the rejections. It's easy to get disheartened and give up, but you just got to hang in there. So the next example, Gone with the Wind, one of the greatest American novels of all time. You know how many times it was rejected? 38. It was rejected 38 times. And I applaud the author for sticking with it that many times. But the ultimate example of this, giving yourself permission to make mistakes, learning to fail forward and not giving up, is Thomas Edison. And I always thought that it took him 1,000 attempts to get a working light bulb. Imagine where we would be today if we didn't have electricity, if we didn't have the light bulb. Things would certainly be different. So I used to think, as I said, that he tried 1,000 times before he was successful. Well, I did some research before this presentation, and I found the actual quote from Thomas Edison. And he said, "I speak without exaggeration when I say that I have constructed 3,000 different theories in connection with the electric light. Each one of them reasonable and apparently to be true. Yet only in 2 cases did my experiments prove the truth of my theory." So it wasn't 1 in 1,000, it was 2 in 3,000. So that is endurance right there. That is the ultimate example of positivity and giving yourself permission to make mistakes. And God bless him. I'm so glad that he kept at it, because our lives would be really different today had he just given up and thrown in the towel. Principle number 6, positivity is a choice every single day, sometimes several times a day. As I said earlier, you can decide when you get up to be positive that it's going to be a great day, and the world will get in your way. It'll throw things at you. It'll try to bring you down. You may turn on the news. There are just examples everywhere of things that would try to bring you down. It's just important that you do those 3 things: the pause, reflect, and redirect when you start thinking those negative thoughts. It is a choice, and you have to choose to accept positivity. Number 7, and this is something that Sam talks about a lot. I'm not sure if he talked about it in his presentation yesterday, but I've definitely heard him talk about it in previous presentations. And that is, refill your cup of inspiration every day and do it as often as you need to do it. You see, our attitude is kind of like our cell phones. What happens when you don't charge your cell phone? Eventually the battery dies and it's of no use. We kind of become dead weight in the same way if we don't recharge our attitudes. So take a few minutes every day to find something positive, whether it's an article online, whether it's calling a friend for encouragement. Sam has been a great mentor to me. I've known him for about 6 years now. And you know what? I can pick up the phone anytime and give him a call, and he always has a word of encouragement for me. So maybe it's an article, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's someone to give you that little bit of encouragement, but it's important that you find time to focus on positivity every single day, even when you don't feel like it. So that is number 6. Number 7 is, or sorry, that was number 7, my mistake. Number 8, and this is a big one too. Part of positivity is forgiving yourself and forgiving others. Letting go of anger and grudges. There is nothing more toxic to your health than holding on to bitterness and resentment towards someone else. You know what? It doesn't hurt them. In a lot of cases, they don't even know that they did you wrong. So the only person you're hurting by holding on to that stuff is yourself. And it's okay to forgive. It's important to know that forgiving someone doesn't equate to forgetting what happened. Probably the best example I can give you of this, I told you my story earlier. I've forgiven my father for everything that he did to me in my life. You know what? It made me a stronger person. I think that I would not be able to sit here today and talk to you today had none of that happened. So in a way, I know it sounds strange. I'm thankful for my story because I'm hoping that there's one of you out there today that my story is going to help. There's a lot of darkness in the world, and sometimes we have to be that light for others. And I'm hoping today that I can be that light for someone out there and give you hope. That's my whole point for wanting to do this. So forgive yourself, forgive others, don't hold on to grudges. Number 9, just believe. Believe that ultimately everything is going to be okay. We manifest what we believe. I truly believe that with every fiber of my being. If you think positive thoughts, positive things are going to come your way. It might not be today. It might not be tomorrow. It might not be a year from now. It might not be 10 years from now. But eventually everything will come back and you will be glad that you thought positive thoughts and you will be rewarded for those positive thoughts. You know, I think Sam mentioned yesterday, don't think negative thoughts because positive thoughts, yeah, it may lead to something positive, but I guarantee you negative thoughts will lead to something negative. So again, just believe that in the end, everything will be okay. So the final point, and for those of you that know me, for those of you that have seen me walk in the halls around Do It Best, or if there's anyone that's not from Do It Best watching this that knows me, something I do all the time is smile. You know what? There are days when I don't feel like it. I do it anyway. You know why? It's not for me. It's for everyone else. Because it doesn't matter what I'm going through. I guarantee there's someone out there that is going through something much worse than what I'm going through. And so if my smile can brighten their day just a little bit, then it's worth it. There have been situations in my life on really dark days when, I mean, I'll be honest, I had some pretty bad thoughts. And I remember one time in particular, I was in high school, and it was just, I've been picked on a lot. And I just was really down, and I had just had it with life. And I was walking down the hall to my last class of the day, and one of my friends smiled at me. Didn't say hi, didn't say hello. It was just a smile. But you know what? That smile turned my day around. That smile is part of the reason I'm with you today. So don't underestimate the power of your smile, and do it even when you don't feel like it. So I'd like to close with a little story. And I'll start with a saying that I've heard, and it's so true. And I love this saying. And that saying is, to the world, you may be one person, but to one person, you may be the world. And sometimes you don't even know that you're having that kind of an impact on people. So in the darkness, and there's a lot of it out there, it's easy to feel like I am one person. I can't make a difference. Even if I am positive, it doesn't matter. There's too much darkness out there. But let me tell you something. How far do you think you can see a single candle? The human eye, without help, can see a single candle in complete darkness when there are no obstructions in between. 100 yards, okay. What are some other thoughts? What do you guys think? A mile? Miles, mile? Little over 40 to 50. Is that feet or yards, Austin? Yes, Matt, it does depend on atmospheric conditions. I love you. That's an awesome observation. Miles. It's actually 30 miles. A single candle. We're not talking about a spotlight. We're not talking about a lighthouse. We're not talking about one of those cool flashlights like they used to have on the X-Files. I forget what they're called, but they were really bright and really strong. We're not talking about that. We're talking about one single candle. 30 miles in the absence of obstacles and complete darkness. So don't think for 1 second that you can't make a difference, because you can. You may not see it, but I guarantee if you can be positive that you can make a difference. So that's what I'd like you to take away from this today more than anything else. Be there for each other, love each other, and be positive.